Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you guys for coming in and sharing your Tuesday night with us. I wanted to start off by, sharing some Zoom etiquette for tonight. If you are on a computer or on a phone device, we ask that you remain muted for the entirety of this presentation. We'd also like you to, if you have questions, to place them in the chat. We will have some moderators that will take your questions, and once it's time for us to have questions and answers, they will read those questions for you. But please don't hesitate to ask questions or share comments in the chat. We'd like to see you guys' participation throughout the event this evening. If there isn't any other questions, I will pass this along to Ms. Charisse Brewington-Carr for the rest of the presentation for this evening. Thank you.
And thank you. And with that, I'm going to hand it off now to our president, Ms. Melanie Spike Daniels, who is the president of the National Coalition of 100 Black Women, Delaware chapter.
Well, good evening, everyone. And thank you so much for joining us for our Sisternomics session number 3. For those of you that don't know, Sisternomics is a national priority, the National Coalition of 100 Black Women, and has been implemented by chapters across the United States. It's an economic empowerment program to improve financial stability, small business ownership, and wealth building. The National Coalition 100 Black Women Delaware chapter focus on giving Black women the tools and resources they need to be in the driver's seat. So what better way than to have financially stimulated conversation creates a philosophical mindset, consider ourselves first in all economic decisions. We have 2 amazing financial gurus that are going to be with us tonight. They are our community partners. And of course, one of the things that the Delaware chapter finds as most important is partnering with other organizations and individuals, because iron sharpens iron. So our main concern tonight, of course, is navigating today's labor market. Fact, Black women are the most educated, but still underpaid. Fact, we are one of the top of the areas of new business development. Fact, and unfortunate, we are and continue to be the economic group that saves money the least and builds wealth the least. So there are things that we need to work on. There are challenges that we have financially. And so it is important for us to build our financial warehouse so that we can effectively get in that driver's seat, make changes that will impact not just us individually, but our families, community, state, the country, and the world. So with that, I am looking forward to our conversation, and I'm hoping that you will take something away that just spurs you to action. Thanks for joining.
Thank you, Melanie. Thank you so much. I'm Charisse Brewington-Carr, the first Vice President of Programs of the National Coalition of 100 Black Women Delaware chapter. I too am thrilled to have you here this evening and for these 2 wonderful invited guests this evening, and I have the honor of introducing them. Just before I do, I'll tell you a little bit about the flow of the presentations today. We want to hear directly from our subject matter expert. So we're going to be hearing from our own Carol Hubbard, she's our own Carol Hubbard, Secretary of Labor, and also Rashmi Ragan, who is the Executive Director of the Delaware Community Reinvestment Council. And that will be the flow. And as you heard earlier, if there are questions or things that come to your mind that you want to ask these 2 wonderful women, subject matter experts, while they're here with us, this is a great time to do it. We'll be observing those chats as we go forward. So it is my honor, it is my distinct honor to introduce to you Carol Hubbard, who is the Delaware Secretary of Labor and my boss. I just want to tell you all that, remind you. She was appointed as Secretary of the Delaware Department of Labor on January 21, of this year by Governor John Carney. In that role, she oversees and manages divisions that provide diverse employment services to Delaware workers and employers. Carol, prior to that, at the Department of Labor, was appointed as Deputy Secretary in 2017. So she's been with us for a while. And in that position, she provided oversight and direction of day-to-day operations of the Office of Administration. In this role, she supported the then Cabinet Secretary in fulfilling the mission of the department in connecting resources and people and ensuring that shared services of the department enabled frontline staff to meet their goals and objectives. Prior to her current position, Carol held several roles in state government, including leadership positions with the Departments of Services for Children, Youth, and their Families, Health and Social Services, and Administrative Services. She also worked for the U.S. House of Representatives as a legislative assistant for Thomas Carper. A lifelong Delawarean, Carol attended Dover High School, Hampton University, and Temple University School of Law. Yes, she is Carol Hubbard, Esquire. She lives in Wilmington with her daughter, Quinn. Let's just give her a hand clap so we can get her motivated. We see her. And then now we're going to introduce Rashmi Ragan. Rashmi joined the Delaware Community Reinvestment Action Council, Inc., better known as DCRAC, in 1994 as its executive director. And get this, everybody, she was the only staff person at that particular time. Isn't that what we do as women? And what she's built from that time forward is exciting. Her first exposure to economic disparity and gender inequity was as a child growing up in India. She learned the foundations of money management from her mother, who saved every extra rupee, and rupee is the name of Indian money, that she could. When she immigrated to Delaware in 1988, along with her husband and 4-year-old daughter, she had a whole $1,000 in saving and learned firsthand what it means to be poor in America. Those lessons have informed her advocacy and leadership at DCRAC, which has grown from a purely advocacy organization to one that serves Delawareans through the Money School, a nonprofit law firm, and a credit union. Grandmom to two, yes, she's too young, looks too young to be a grandmom, but she has 2 young ladies. Rashmi counts herself among the lucky ones who gets to see them several times a week. A little bit about DCRAC. DCRAC is in the business of transforming financial lives through its mission of equitable treatment and equal access to credit and capital. Stepping Stones Community Federal Credit Union, chartered in 2011, the credit union is a federal home loan bank member, a community development financial institution, and the only certified minority depository institution in the entire state of Delaware. In April 2019, DCRAC acquired the Money School to educate consumers of financial products and services and how to thrive financially. In July 2019, DCRAC launched the nonprofit law firm to provide legal services to those who do not qualify for pro bono services and cannot afford these services in the marketplace. So we go from one staff to 4 different institutions. Let's salute Rashmi, if we could. It's amazing, just amazing. I'm so looking forward to this discussion. We're going to start with Secretary Hubbard giving her presentation, and then we'll go into Rashmi. And again, we just want to lean in and listen. And then thereafterwards, if you have questions, make sure you put those in the chat. So if we could put up Secretary Hubbard's, share the screen and put up her presentation, she can begin. There we go. I'll put it in slide mode. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, I'm so pleased to be here with you all today. I tell you, it's been 14 months since the beginning of the pandemic. And I mean, at every turn, you know, with COVID information, it was the coalition. With testing, it was the coalition. With outreach on vaccines, it was the coalition. With economic support, it was the coalition. So the coalition has really been in every facet of this triage situation that we found ourselves in for the past 14 months. And I just want to say thank you for all your work on behalf of the citizens of this state. Your support, information, and networks have been invaluable to the communities that we're involved with, and getting people engaged in these discussions around COVID. So thank you for that. So I have a number of slides here, but to the extent possible, I'd like to make this as much of a discussion as anything, and I'm really looking forward to any questions that you may have. But the one thing I will say about your sister, Sharice Brewington Carr, she is, as in the words of Shirley Chisholm, unbought and unbossed. So she says that I'm her boss, but I have my suspicions. Anyway, I just want to talk a little bit about the Department of Labor. Our mission statement is that we connect people to jobs, resources, monetary benefits, workplace protections, and labor market information to promote financial independence, workplace justice, and a strong economy. The department has 5 divisions, and I'll go through them real quickly. I'm going to be focusing tonight in on our first division, employment and training. This division provides services enabling employers and job seekers to make informed employment and training choices leading to employment. The division administers various federal and state workforce programs that assist individuals in obtaining their next job or career change. And one does not need to be unemployed to utilize our services. And I'd really like to focus on that a little bit too. Our Division of Vocational Rehabilitation assists disabled individuals and helps them develop career pathways and links them to employment, providing success and less dependency. Most people know us as the Unemployment Office, but really it's the Division of Unemployment Insurance. And it goes without saying that we provide benefits to eligible individuals who become employed through no fault of their own. Our next division is Industrial Affairs. It promotes fairness and safety in the workplace through the enforcement of laws that protect workers and consultation programs for small businesses. We've got individual divisions. One that you may know about is the Office of Anti-Discrimination, but we also do labor law enforcement, wage and hour enforcement, and other enforcement of labor laws in the workplace. We're also that is also the division that creates all of those workplace signs you see with all the writing that I don't think anybody ever reads, but that information is there to protect you. And so finally, we have the Office of Occupational Labor Market Information. That is the key resource that we use in the state for data related to the labor market. And so they provide a wealth of information about careers, emerging industries, and other kinds of data to help people make informed choices about employment. Okay, so I really want to, next slide. So I want to focus some on the Division of Employment and Training. And I want to talk about some of the resources and services provided in that division that can really help empower people in their career choices. So we provide occupational skills training programs, self-service, self-assisted job postings, job referrals, candidate screenings, skills assessments, coordination of recruitment services and job fairs, marketing of employers' career opportunities. And we have 4 job centers throughout the state providing right now virtual and soon to be on-site services, including interviewing strategies and other career workshops. Because of the pandemic, we had to really pivot and begin to provide a lot of our services online. And the lemons out of that lemonade is that we're going to be able to serve people in a whole new way and not force them to come into our offices, dragging their kids. It will be easily accessible at home. So that is, primarily what we do. Next slide, please. So I know that some of you on this call are business owners. And so we are very serious in helping employers link with employees. And our gateway, I'll call it, is JobLink, which is our automated system that links job seekers with employers. It's delaware.joblink.gov. And what it does, .com. And what individuals will do is go online, they'll enter their resume. Employers will place in job orders when they're looking for employees. And so we have staff on board that is almost like Match.com. They go in, they look at the various resumes that are out there. If they see a job order, they will send that information to the employer that, you know, Mary Jo is ready and willing and able to do this job, and a match is made and someone gets employed. So we, you know, it's not only a passive system where resumes go in, but we actively try to do those connections for employers and employees. So that is something that, you know, right now people are leveraging. I will just take a minute and say that probably 3 weeks ago, when we first announced that in order to receive unemployment insurance, you had to register in JobLink. That had always been the rule, but for the pandemic, we eliminated that connection. Number one, because there were no jobs were shedding. And number two, we were just overwhelmed. We had, at the height, 62,000 claims, and it was just unreasonable for us to expect people to search for work and for us to be able to help people who were trying to find jobs, because at the time it was just impossible. So we had about 4,200 resumes in the system, and we had about 11,000 job orders from employers seeking people. So once we told folks that we were going to couple that again and require them to do work search, we now have 16,000 resumes in the JobLink system and about 12,000 job orders. So we've kind of flipped things on its head in a very short period of time. And I just, you know, want to share that now is the time to look for work. You know, folks who are laying back, waiting, you know, jobs are getting snatched up. And so it is really critical that folks get into that JobLink system and begin to do their work search. So next slide. All right, our business service representatives, for you all who own your own businesses, we can tailor job fairs, job services that you need. We can create job postings for you. We help with all of that. So if you're in the market for employees, please reach out to our division and we can help with all of those services from soup to nuts. Okay, next slide. I'm trying to monitor my time here. All right, so this next slide is funding for training. The ENT may be able to help the cost of many different degrees, licensing, or certificate programs using federal and state dollars. We have ongoing relationships with both private and public and private partners to create an almost seamless infrastructure to blend funding for job seekers at every level. That includes local and online college, VOTEX, universities, skill centers, and privately owned training facilities. We've got 350 already approved training programs that are paid for in full or partially by DET to help you gain skills to go to the next step in your career. And I'll just pause briefly just to kind of hit that point. There are income eligibility criteria that need to be considered. But again, if there are any questions at all, I have another slide in here that gives contact information if you want more information. So, you know, the one thing the pandemic has done, it has given people an opportunity to assess and perhaps reset where they're going. And so if you decided that, hey, you know, what I was doing is not what I didn't want to do, you can come in, get an assessment, and then perhaps get dollars for training to go to that next career. Next slide, please. I'll just briefly mention the one-stop system. The federal government requires us to partner, and it is a great idea for us to partner with other agencies that sort of create a holistic support system for people who are looking for work. So, you know, we work with the TANF program, we work with libraries, we work with a number of community organizations to help folks in their job search and their career development. So next slide. All right, so here is the information I promised on this slide here. It's if you want to reach out to me, our numbers are there. Richard Fernandez is the director for the Division of Employment and Training. Barry Butler is our operations administrator. He is over our business unit. So if you do own a small business, feel free to reach out to him, and his team can help you develop strategies for hiring and individuals during this post-pandemic period. Next slide. Okay, so I couldn't leave without talking a little bit about unemployment insurance. I know that Cherise feels some kind of way about us always focusing on unemployment, but there are some critical things happening, and I wanted to make sure that people were aware that, you know, the nation is beginning to reopen. And, you know, this week, we are beginning the week ending June 12th this week. We are going to require work search to continue to provide unemployment insurance benefits. So it's critical that you upload a resume, type in a resume into JobLink, and conduct a weekly job search activity. So, you know, if that does not occur, then you will have your unemployment benefit held. So the other thing I want to mention is jobs. There are plenty of jobs out there and plenty of training programs available. We've sunk $16 million of CARES money into job training that, you know, in various fields, IT, hospitality, trades, logistics. So, you know, reach out and get more information about that. So with that, I'll just again advertise joblink.delaware.gov. That is the site where you can upload a resume and do job search. Next slide, please. Again, thank you so much for having me here this evening. I appreciate all that you do. You know, certainly believe that success is at hand. We have, you know, this is a good opportunity to, you know, think about what you want to do in your career, and whether you own a small business or you're working, now is a good time to reset. And if you want to change, the opportunities are out there. So with that, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I know there'll be questions. I'm putting some in here as well, but if we can move into the next presentation here through that, and people are thinking about all of that, I'm sure that what Secretary Hubbard is said to us will resonate. You'll have more questions. So if we can pull up Rashmi's presentation. Don't go anywhere, Secretary, because we will be asking you some questions. But if we could pull hers up, Alicia, so she can begin, that would be great. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. It is a tough act to follow, Secretary Hubbard. I have 25 slides, 2.5 times more than you. So I'm gonna be quick. My contact information right there. I'm very easy to find. rrangan@dcrack.org or 298-3250. Go to dcrack.org. Next slide. And after I'm done, I'm going to drop a few things in the chat. So the DCRAC flyer, I'll drop in the chat. Look at the bottom corner of it, where you have everyone's contact information. Mine, Money School, Credit Union, and DCRAC Law. Next slide, please. I'll rush through some. Advocacy. To change what is into what it ought to be. Couple of things that I'm advocating for. Next slide, please. Livable wage. Remove barriers to those on SSI, SSDI. Review tax treatment of unemployment benefits in 2020 unless we had changed the tax code to not tax unemployment benefits, our people would have suffered the most. EARNS Act is in session, legislative session tomorrow. State Treasurer is sponsoring expanding access for retirement and necessary savings. DCRAC is supporting. In addition, Senator Coons is proposing an Asset Act removing tests for benefits. So currently it's about $2,000. you reach that and you can't take advantage of food stamps, etc. So now he's proposing up to $10,000 in assets. Next slide. Business formation, failure to plan or plan to fail. So the next slide is also an attachment that I'm going to download. Beautiful comparison chart. The way to read it is start at the bottom, absolute bottom row. See what kind of a business you are and work your way up. It tells you exactly what you need to do. On the extreme left, if you are a mom and pop store, what kind, like an ice cream shop, everything that you have to do. And that's good. So I'll drop that into the chat box as well. One of the things I've done for a long time in between we stopped doing was start and grow your small business. Delaware is blessed. We have so many amazing nonprofits that support small businesses. There's True Access, there is the SBDC. On the next page, it's a quick overview of small business, but I'll take a little time, even though I will drop it in the chat box. Businesses. Once you punch in, all of you who are in business for yourself, you know there ain't no punching out until your business is incredibly successful. About 20% startups fail in year one and 50% fail within 5 years. Businesses fail because they lack experience, insufficient capital, maybe poor location, poor inventory, management, so many things that get in the way. Credit, your credit score, it's personally incredibly important. You think, what does my business have to do with my personal credit score? Everything, because you don't borrow against your business, you are borrowing, you're guaranteeing yourself. So that one pager has a lot of information. Schedule C filers. And in my tax clinic, this is who we see the most. Don't turn your advantages into a nightmare. So you have advantages, you're self-employed, you're your own boss. If you're home-based, you have tax breaks. Legally, you reduce your tax liability and your business takes off. Wow, all the rewards, financial rewards are yours to keep. So here are some disadvantages. With the Paycheck Protection Program, one of the things it exposed is why these Schedule C filers, the 1099ers, gig workers, mom and pop shop owners, there were many reasons they could not take advantage of the first round and the second round of PPP loans. Without tremendous advocacy on our part, the third round of PPP loans also would have missed them by. Schedule C filers basically are looking at, for all purposes, actually, yeah. If you are a Schedule C filer, you take qualified business deductions on line 13 of your tax return. That reduces your tax liability, your taxable income on line 15. If line 15 is used to determine how much you can borrow, guess what? Your borrowing capacity shrank because you legally reduced your taxable income. And it came in play when you were applying for PPP loans. It comes into play when you're applying for a mortgage or a car loan. They are looking at line 15 to qualify you. So you might be making a whole lot, but you end up with a problem over here. So be aware when you are a Schedule C filer that there is a consequence. Next slide. The other thing, and here is where our clients come in. There is a self-employment tax. You're your own boss, but you are also your own minion. So you are an employer and an employee. You have to pay FICA, your share and your employer's share. So it's about 15.3% on your profits. So how do you know until the end of the year what your profits are? So you estimate what your profits are, and depending upon what your estimate is, you either pay your estimated taxes on a weekly basis, bi-weekly, monthly, or quarterly basis. You also must plan for federal, state, and local taxes because you'd have to pay them. And since you're not getting a paycheck as a Schedule C filer, you need to operate as if you're getting one. Make estimated payments. And for larger businesses, many of you here, you are an employer, you have employees. From your employees, you are withholding from the wages, you're withholding FICA, you're setting aside your match, you're withholding state, federal, Wilmington taxes on behalf of your employee. Whatever you do not touch that. It's called trust fund for a reason. Not only is your business liable, you can create any kind of a business entity, but if you touch that trust fund, you are personally and potentially criminally liable. So if you are withholding your employees' FICA and taxes, don't touch it. And the first thing a business ought to do is hire themselves an accountant, lawyers later. But a banker and an accountant are two critical best friends for a small business. Reasons for tax troubles: co-mingling money. Whatever kind of a business you are, your business account and your personal account should never see each other whatsoever. And my screen froze. Sorry. Poor planning before formation. You should have formed, say, an LLC. You started as a subchapter S, or not paying estimated taxes, I mentioned, not paying self-employment taxes, not withholding enough. Filing status disputes come in for subchapter S employees. Trust fund penalties, I mentioned, and worker classification. If you have a worker, a wage earner, issue them a W-2. Do not issue them 1099. 1099 recipients end up with a huge tax debt on December 31st if they did not know that they would receive a 1099. And then on the next slide, there is a wonderful resource. It's a 52-pager. On page 14 to 20 are resources available for small businesses. A business plan on page 22, 23. Lenders and loans on page 31, 33. I'll drop it in the chat box. And there were some other things I wanted to quickly touch on. And they are short slides. So the next slide, please. Next slide, please. The best thing money can buy is financial freedom. Manage your money. Your life depends on it. If you didn't know, the pandemic showed it to you. Manage your money. Next slide. Savings first. Pre-pandemic, more than 40% of Americans couldn't handle a $400 emergency. Today, that emergency is way beyond $400. Each time you pay yourself, your future self is going to thank you. Goals. Without a date and dollar, a goal is just a dream. Maybe some of you have heard my big screen TV story. If not, I'm going to drop that in the chat box as well. Next one. Don't buy the 300, previous one, please. Can we go back one slide? I love that slide. The next one. Don't buy the $300 bag to have nothing in it. Buy the $10 bag and have $290 in it. Don't go broke trying to look rich. Next slide. A light purse, we all know, is a very heavy purse. The next one, plan your debt load. All your money, including what you pay for taxes, it is useful to calculate what you can borrow. Gross annual income times 2.5 is minimum mortgage that you can handle. Gross annual income times 0.25 is the maximum car loan you can handle. Gross annual income times 1.5 is the maximum student loan your budget can handle. Can we go back? And 0.75 is the maximum your credit card debt can handle. Already you are 5 times your annual income in debt, not counting the interest at all. So plan your debt load very carefully right now. Next slide. Truth in Lending Act, anytime you borrow money from anyone, unless it's your mama, can we go back? Unless it's your mama, you're going to sign this document. The most important piece about this document is that little box. It tells you the APR. I say, skip that, don't worry. It tells you the finance charge. I say, skip that, don't worry. It tells you how much you're borrowing, how much you're paying. You're borrowing $200, you're paying back $800. Now, normally I'd say skip that, but look below. And below it says, within 1 month, you are paying $800 for borrowing $200. This is highway robbery, but permissible. Also, if you don't come up with that money, they're taking your car. This is a car title loan. These are the kind of things that keep our community basically unable to take advantage of so many things that Secretary Hubbard talked about at the Department of Labor. Because they don't have a car, they can never borrow a car loan because of this debt on their car, or their credit is ruined, or they have a tax lien, which becomes difficult for an employer to hire. So Truth in Lending Act, please, as you meet others in the community, if there's one thing you can take away, take this one slide and teach everyone how to read this document, because ultimately, if the judge is going to ask, is this your signature, not whether you understood what was in it. Next slide, please. If you're paying minimum on a credit card, please, please live on love and air for a month, 2 months, 3 months, pay it off. Here is a credit card debt, $10,000 at a 7% APR. The person who borrowed this money, $10,000, didn't charge anymore and was diligent on making sure that they paid $142 on time, all the time. Didn't use that credit card anymore. Month 1, they paid $142. Balance was $98.58. Interest charge was $141. So in first month, they paid down that principal only by $1 after paying $142. This person will take 36 years to pay that $10,000 off by paying $61,060. These numbers are not made up. They are meant to scare you. If you're scared, I've done my job. Please live on love and air. Pay off that credit card debt. It's incredibly important in your wealth building journey. Next slide. Here are some critical stats. Unbanked and underbanked pay $40,000 over their financial lives just in fees. Secretary Hubbard, credit union would love to be the bank for employed and unemployed in the state of Delaware. We do not charge fees for financial transactions. Net worth of a homeowner is nearly 40 times the net worth of a renter. I came to the United States in 1988, September 21st to be exact. Within 5 years, before I was an American citizen, Before I had my green card, I was a homeowner. I paid rent for 2 years, and every rent check that I pained me. Actually, 3 years, it pained me. I saved and I became a homeowner. And the last slide is of my journey to become a millionaire. And yes, I am a millionaire. I started with $1,000 about 33 years ago. And today I can confidently say I am one. I used to lie when I taught classes on managing money. I lied enough, maybe about 3-4 years, and then I started believing. And once I started believing, I started acting. I'm more than happy to share everything that I have learned with anyone who would listen. Thank you so much for this opportunity to share with you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That was amazing and shocking, I would say, for some things to remind us of things not to do. And I know that we've got questions on top of questions on top of questions. I know that I had a lot of questions in here as well. This was amazing information in here. And I know I've got other folks who have questions other than myself, but before we get into the subject matter, can we, both of you guys are women leaders in business. And we're big on leadership development and understanding what that means for women as they show up in the workplace, in business, and what have you. Can you both each talk a little bit about some of the challenges maybe that you're facing as women? What's it like, Secretary Hubbard, being the secretary? And certainly, Rashmi, when you're dealing with business in the banks and what have you, what are you facing? What do they say in the C-suite? What do they say? You know, the guys say, etc.
Okay, well, I think I am a little unique in that, and maybe it's the public sector is a little bit different, I believe, than the private sector with respect to coming up the ladder in leadership. You know, it is always good to have your education behind you, your background, your experience behind you, because, you know, I probably earn as much as a male, white male cabinet secretary who has a college degree. So you always have to come in, you know, more prepared than the next person. So, you know, there's no hint of resentment about that. It's just, it is what it is. And, you know, I made a decision in my career to be a public servant. So, you know, we make various choices. You know, I didn't start out with a law degree, and I was definitely underpaid. I was living in Washington, D.C., making $16,000 a year. So eating turkey hot dogs. So, you know, that's not a good place to be. So I made the decision to, you know, go into a little debt to get another degree. So, but again, you know, when you're competing against other, you know, males in the workplace, I think in a public sector position, you have a little bit, I won't say easier time, but you have more allies, I think, when you are working, because there were plenty of African-American females who, you know, grabbed my hand and pulled me along. So I was advantaged in that respect.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Rashmi, what about your journey?
I think in Delaware, I'll always be an outsider, except in this family here. I've been embraced by the sisters, especially Ray Avery Jones, who has always been there supporting me and lifting me up. But as one who really came here with a huge accent, didn't know the language, didn't know the culture, didn't know the monetary system, the barriers were incredible barriers. Luckily, though, I found a perfect home at DCREC where I could fight. That's the one thing I can do really well. I can fight. I can fight a cause. Give me a cause that I actually passionately believe in, and tell me, go do what you can with it. And here it was. I thought I had left behind discrimination. I thought I had left behind predatory lending. And then I am surrounded by it. It's almost like an immersion in it. At least in India, I was the privileged class, the highest caste. I wasn't a person of color. There were so many things that I'm still processing. And every step of the way, I'm reminded, for me, it's still easier. But for so many, it isn't. And it's that battle that keeps me going. And I come across as the angry brown woman or whatever it is. But I get really very angry because I've experienced privilege as in my zip code. I live in the Pike Creek area. I work here on the east side, west side, and the different opportunities for me, same me here, just gets my goat.
Well, we thank you for fighting and keep up the good fight. Continue to do so. I know that you've got some sisters behind you that'll join you as well. And Carol, thank you so much for, being the public servant. And I know that it is a sacrifice. I've joined that as well, but there's also very rewarding in terms of working with people too. So I know that about you and about your heart. So I see some questions in here. And again, some of them are my questions, but I'm wondering if anybody else are thinking about some things. But I would like Secretary Hubbard, if she could talk a little bit about some of the non-traditional kinds of training opportunities we have where women might get an opportunity to make a little bit more money if they so choose, like apprenticeship or any of those kind of programs that we might have at labor, or places that folks don't know that everything that we do there is free, at the Department of Labor. If you could talk a little bit about that.
Sure. Make sure I'm not on mute, am I?
No, you're good.
Okay, so yeah, I'm glad you mentioned apprenticeship. That is something that I'm really, anxious to talk to people about, women, African American women especially, because I think most of the time when we think of apprenticeship, we think of that father to son plumber. They've been in the business for 3 generations. But the reality is apprenticeships are open to everyone. You've got to link with an employer first, but once you do, it's sort of an earn as you learn situation. So you'll have a job, but part of the apprenticeship is going to school and getting training as well as hands-on. And, most plumbers, are making a ton of money. I had a flood in my kitchen a few years back. The guy was here 3 hours. He walked out with $900. So that is a really living wage that can transform a family's life, into the future. So I really want, us to start having discussions with young women about the prospect of going into a trade, construction, plumbing, electrical. Those are good fields with good, benefits, whether you join the union or if you're with a regular construction firm, or if you create your own. It is an opportunity, I think, that is underutilized, but that could really be transformative for African American females. I will also say, some of the other fields, obviously tech is big now. We've invested a lot of money in tech training, and we will continue to support that moving forward. Those are really good salaries coming out. Most people are making $50,000, $60,000, $70,000. These are, again, positions that aren't necessarily, you don't need a college degree, because obviously college isn't for everyone. But these are good paying, long-term wealth building jobs for families that we are really encouraging women to take and make it their own.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm looking here, and again, I've had a whole bunch of questions in here, but if anybody else, if I'm not missing any here, I have to ask, because we are a advocacy organization and we have an active public policy agenda, and it varies, depends on what the needs of our constituency is, Black women and Black girls. But are there any pieces of legislation from both of you ladies from the business end, and certainly Secretary from the labor end that we should be paying attention to, that you can alert us to, that would be great.
I think that, Rashmi did a really nice job talking about some of the advocacy she's doing down in Legislative Hall this year. There are a lot of interesting bills. We've got an extremely progressive legislature now. When you look at the picture of our legislature, you wouldn't even believe it's Delaware. So we've got some very, very powerful voices on progressive issues like increasing the minimum wage, paid leave, just eliminating the training wage and the youth wage. And these are all pretty progressive ideas that, now is the time that the legislature is really addressing these things that, would have been unheard of a few years back. I will talk a little bit about Elevate Delaware, which is a bill that we have been working with Representative Osinski. And what that would do is provide, it's a job training grant for up to $10,000 for one of the, for any training or occupation that the individual is interested in. We have a list of preferred occupations. The individual could go to that list, get up to $10,000. If that person were to select training that was $7,000, this bill would allow them to keep the remaining $3,000 and utilize it for daycare, transportation, electric, housing expenses. So we really are trying to build a scenario where there's supports in for people as they try to transition from one career to another, or if they've been out of the workforce, whether they're justice involved, coming back and trying to, get some training and still have those wraparound supports to help them moving forward. So not sure that's going to be heard in the House probably in the next few days. So we're really hopeful about that.
And where can we get that list, Secretary, of those occupations?
That is through the Workforce Development Board. It is managed by that group, and the Workforce Development Board is really I call it our board of directors. They are a group of business people, small business, large business, industry, and they look at the data around emerging occupations and emerging industries and try to make recommendations around what type of training should be funded in Delaware in order to support Delaware business.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
There were two quick things from an advocacy perspective, in addition to what is in the pipeline. One of them, during the pandemic, what we saw was the greatest digital divide that actually created a gulf where many of our potential clients couldn't even access the benefits, the support structures, the unemployment insurance to fill those forms online. We shut down on March 12th, 2020. But living didn't shut down for our people. Many of us who had access to technology and new technology continued fine. But even those who had access to technology, such as the computers that were quickly given to students so they could study from home, the parent couldn't use that equipment because the school body could see what was going on, and the parent had signed not for personal use, or in many instances, they didn't know how to use it, or they owed Comcast and Comcast got disconnected. Yet all the benefits, unemployment insurance, it was all going through online. So if we don't fight for a narrowing and eliminating of this digital divide in City of Wilmington, we don't even have choice. We are stuck with either Comcast or that dish. That's it, nothing else. So we need options, we need support. The second thing is so many of our neighbors must survive on $900 supplemental Social Security income a month. I've tried and I'm very good with money, but there is no way I could live on $900 a month. No way. And we have SNAP, we have housing vouchers and all of that. I've seen housing voucher holders being evicted without a roof over their head. So there are so many challenges that our community faces that you could sit down and say, where do I start? Or at least pick a place and start and just, now is a perfect opportunity to build back better. Let us build back better.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, Madam President, you have a question?
Yes, I wanted to ask Secretary Hubbard, can you speak to the unemployment rate and any disparities that are presenting for Black women and communities of color?
So yeah, thank you for that. I cannot speak to specifically women of color, but I will say that African Americans have been affected disproportionately with respect to this, to unemployment as a result of the pandemic. We are about 24% of the population of Delaware, and we represent about 33% of the people currently receiving unemployment. And pretty much throughout the pandemic, it is held. The other piece of data that's similar, really, I don't really have a breakdown by race, but 75% of the people who lost jobs during the pandemic had a high school degree or less. So there was some insulation in having a college degree with respect to COVID unemployment, but certainly, those who had a high school degree or less really faced a difficult situation. And it's not surprising given that most of these folks are working at the lower wages in most businesses right now.
Thank you
How
so
do you
much.
feel about, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
So minimum wage is a thing for me. So what's your position? What are your thoughts with regard to the minimum wage increase or lack thereof and the pushback that has been happening all across the state with regard to it?
Well, I would have to say I'm in favor of people having a living wage, and it just is. You can't. There's no reason why a business can't begin to pay people a living wage. And I know there's a balance because new businesses aren't always in a position to pay the kind of salaries that are that are living wage. But again, I think phased in over a period of time, it makes sense because it's you're keeping people in permanent poverty if you don't begin to address our minimum wage. It's really upsetting when you think about that. The federal minimum wage is what, $7.25. Here in Delaware, we're at $9.25. We just changed that in the past 3 or 4 years. So I understand, some jobs are youth jobs, fast food. Obviously, kids aren't raising a family, but at the same time, you're trying to teach them about the dignity of work and getting paid what you're, a wage that respects you as a human being. So, I certainly support increases to the minimum wage. It has been controversial. I know you'll talk to business owners who feel like that will put them at a very serious disadvantage in terms of business starts and things like that. But we as a society have got to begin to address the generational poverty that we have. And this is one way, equalizing wages is a way to do that.
Can I jump in on that? Governments always find funding when it comes to supporting businesses. So if businesses are upset about, oh, you're raising my cost by making me pay higher wages, give them a grant. Even us nonprofits, the biggest cost for us is personnel cost. So we've always supported, we fight for livable wages, which are higher than the minimum wage battle. And if we had to pay livable wage, which we do, I think, but if we have to pay livable wage, our cost of operations will go up. So the governments must support us in that fight. But much of the battle comes from businesses and our governments are. I'm not just speaking about Delaware, but governments in generally are beholden to businesses, fearing that businesses might just up and move, which they do.
Mhm. You make both of you make compelling points, and I saw a comment in the chat there that, you know, the livable wage and the minimum wage is like two separate distinct things. And I know that there had been some work done long time ago around self-sufficiency standards and what does it really take. I think the Urban League did that at the time. Metropolitan Wilmington Urban League did that at the time. And I don't know that anything substantive has been done since that time to really look at what it actually takes to live, not just live, but also live a qualitative type of a lifestyle, depending on your family size. You know, what does it actually take? So you know, certainly Secretary Hubbard, you know, and Rashmi and any other persons that would join us, you know, in the coalition, to look at what that means and what that looks like in and of itself would be very helpful, because I just think that even with the $15 an hour wage, it's not enough. It's just not enough. And so what can we do more? We'll continue to advocate, but what can we do more for women, particularly women run households and what have you, or single income households, not regarding your marital status or any of that, but just the one income that's coming in. Is it enough? You know, is it enough, and can it be enough without two jobs together, or, you know, gig economy because you just have to? So I'm just going to stop there because we're right at the mark here, and ask, thank you all so much, but ask if we could have our own second Vice President of Fund Development, Ray Jones Avery, to offer some remarks, and then pivot over to our president to close us out. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you, Vice President Brewington Carr. This is always so much to consider and to take in. So as I have grown more wise, and I intentionally didn't say as I have grown older, because it is possible for one to grow older and to not to grow wiser. The greatest lesson that I am learning is that the universe supplies all of our needs. But we have so many barriers, and we are so burdened by the inequities and the racial injustices that we experience as Africans in this country, that it just becomes such so convoluted. And so what I would like to leave you all with is to encourage us to adopt an abundance mindset. We are an advocacy organization, but we need to lift our voices in more strong and in fact ways that may indeed make people feel uncomfortable, because we've been talking about these heavy matters for far too long. You've offered us a tremendous amount of resources that we need to do our homework and do the work to access these self-development tools, this coaching, these skills building, networking opportunities. Our Secretary of Labor encouraged us to assess and to reset. Where are we going in both our careers and our as business owners, which is a career choice. She encouraged us to understand that if we're looking for a career expansion or career changes, that jobs are very plentiful in particular sectors, and to take the time to explore where those opportunities are, as well as the training programs. My sister Rashmi, savings first. So those of you that know me know that I am who I am, and I was just trying to make it from day to day. And so I sit here having had a career and thinking about, you know, how to go from where I am. having not done those kinds of things that Rashmi, with no judgment, has tried to teach me to do all these years. The tax clinic, that's Schedule C for business owners. Really take advantage of those tax clinics that are offered by DCRAC. Get an accountant. Don't commingle personal and business funds. And I love this. A light purse is a heavy curse. It really is. So on behalf of the National Coalition, I want to thank you. Our president will thank you as well. You're always very generous with your time and with the information, your knowledge, and your intellectual capital. And most importantly, I just want to say to my sisters, don't worry about judgments. Shed yourself of fear and a spirit of shame. We need to get this information and put this information to use. And these sisters that are here with us this evening, they're open to us, and we want to take advantage of it. So thank you for your warrior spirits, one quiet one, one loud one. Thank you both. It matters what you're doing for us and for our state and our nation. Thank you.
I will just, ride on the back of Vice President Ray Jones Avery. Information that you all share and the fact that you are so free to share it is such a blessing. And that you didn't count it robbery to take this time. I'm sure you've been on a million Zooms, and to add one more, share your wisdom, your pearls. We just can't thank you enough. Over the years, I have just learned so much from the two of you. And to hear you share those same pearls with everyone else just continues to ring in my head that, we can make change. We can change. Community can change. We can build wealth in our communities, and it's never too late to do so. So thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much for all that you give to the state of Delaware. And thank you all for joining us because, of course, if you don't get the information, you lack the intelligence to make the change. So thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. We'll conclude. Those of you want to hang on a little bit, we had a little time for sister chat, kind of debrief a little bit. We can. We can cut off the recording.